Hello and welcome back to Jump To It for IrishRacing.com. I'm your host, Joe Ryan, and this weekend it feels a little bit like the calm before the storm, really. There is racing going on. Obviously, a lot of people are focusing on Cheltenham. We will be getting to that later on in the week, basically, and also next week, of course. But joining me, as ever, is Ed Quigley, Stephen Harris, and Vincent Finegan. Now, Stephen, I'll start with you because of the fantastic tipping form you're in. One of your pointers on Betting Expert is also to look outside of Cheltenham as for potential value bets. So can you just talk about maybe this weekend, is the focus off? Is there potential opportunities here the bookies might have missed something?
Well, often I always think the Sedgefield meeting on Tuesday at Cheltenham, there's usually 3 or 4 absolute plots that get laid out because the trainers, the connections are well aware that they can get money on heavily without it sort of firing up on the radar of all the bookmakers' screens. And so there often are really good opportunities. I mean, sometimes with Cheltenham, by the time we get round to the actual day, the markets have been pretty much long established. The value can be squeezed out, and that's not always the case, certainly not with the handicaps. And there's lots of specials and distances and number of winners. And so there's loads going on, and you can certainly get on. But yeah, it is worth looking elsewhere sometimes. Like Monday, which starts the week, if we've got Plumpton and Stratford, which are always very well attended and competitive meetings. So there's lots going on as well as Cheltenham.
Oh, Ed, I'll jump to you as well. I just want to say thanks for the stellar job you did in presenting our preview night, 2 hours plus with Danny Mullins, of course, on the panel. So a great show. Ed, just get your thoughts quickly on how much you're looking forward to next week.
Oh, yeah, you know me. Joe, yeah, it doesn't take a lot to get me excited about the festival. Well, no, it was a great show. It was great to have Danny Mullins on board. Some really good insight, I thought, from him, especially in terms of like the temperament of a few of the horses. You know, we don't often see that, do we, from the form book, if you see what I'm saying? You can only kind of see where they finish, how they run, what ground they run on, but often you don't get to see the ins and outs of the day-to-day workings of some of these horses and what their little quirks and traits are. So I thought that was great. And yeah, obviously really looking forward to it now. Been a lot of dry weather in Cheltenham. All the kind of the doom mongers, all the rain merchants are out in force saying, you know, we're looking for a swamp, and myself included, in fairness. I thought we were going to get pretty much soft to heavy ground when I looked at the weather about a week ago, but it's been dry all week. There's a few showers forecast over the weekend, but we're going to be looking at it somewhere around good to soft now to start the festival. And so there'll be no excuses from connections on the ground front, shall we say.
And Vincent, will just bring you in here as well. Just looking at the Irish races this weekend, you will be going more in depth later on in the show. But is there a lot of appeal this weekend, or is it all about next week?
Well, it's realistically everything's about next week, isn't it? Our whole lives is about next week. Starts Tuesday at 1:30. But the Irish racing this weekend, if you are someone who's spending hours and hours this weekend studying form for Cheltenham, which I'm sure a huge amount of our audience will be doing, if they spent a little bit of time on some of the obscure races this weekend in Ireland, you've got 4 meetings, huge amount of horses running, that if you did spend a bit of time on some of them, you will find some ricks in the betting from the odds compilers. Odds compilers are up to their neck at this stage with Cheltenham and all the special bets they'll be doing and different, trying to price all types of markets, whereas we've got whatever we have, 4, 8, 32 odd races in Ireland this weekend. I'd say it won't even register on their Richter scale. They'll all be copying each other in the prices. So there'll definitely be value there somewhere if you're willing to put the work in, roll up your sleeves and study either a Limerick on Sunday or Naas or Gowran Park or Navan. But I can't see anyone doing that. They'll all be just looking at Cheltenham. The decks are out Sunday morning, so that's when everyone will be focusing fully Cheltenham from there on, I'd imagine.
Well, as a bit of a tease, Vincent, you have done some of that hard work for us for this weekend, so we'll get to you later on in the show. But now we're going to go into some upcoming races for this weekend, specifically at Sandown. So the first race we're going to look at is the 150, and I want to bring in Stephen here, just take us through how this race is shaping up. I see Gary Moore is in decent form in the last 21 days, so do you think he has a decent shout in this race?
Yeah, I mean, Gary Moore has been one of the success stories of the season, Joe. Actually, my friend lives very near to Gary Moore, and apparently he was in Horsham Jewellers the other day buying 3 Rolexes for all his family. That's how well things have been going for Gary and his followers. I was at Sandown on Tuesday, actually. The ground was drying out incredibly quickly. The chase course was good, basically, and the hurdle course was just dead. We are forecast rain on Friday, so things could change slightly, but I think it'll be good to soft at worst. For a really good card, actually, on Saturday at Sandown. In the 150, it's a very competitive race, 17 runners. So the place terms are in the punter's favour. If you're going to play play each way, and there'll also be extra places available. We always say that. The one I liked here, Joe, was Dubrovnik Harry of Harry Fry's, a stable going particularly well at the moment. Harry Fry, one of my favourite yards to follow. He places his horses realistically. He's got a great strike rate. And Dubrovnik Harry has run 3 times over hurdles. A sighter first time out. He then won by a distance at Exeter in bad ground from a useful horse called American Jerry, who's franked the form since. And then last time out, this will put a lot of people off, Joe. He got turned over at 3 on at Leicester in a novice hurdle, but it was a very strong novice hurdle. And if you know Leicester, they get racing a long way out there. It's a long straight on bad ground. He just got tired. He'll be ridden with much more patience. He's on a mark of 125, I believe, for his handicap debut. And I think that's probably at least £7 too lenient. He'll improve in a big field, and I think he'll go really close. He's actually my betting expert napper the whole weekend, so fingers crossed for him.
Well, yeah, of course, we will get to your tips of the week as well. That kind of ticks off one of those. But Ed, you've got a bit of a conflicting view, I think, in this race, right? You're going for a different horse.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's pretty wide open, I thought, but I did think the market perhaps still hasn't got to Thunder Rock, who's just been incredibly progressive for the Ollie Murphy team. Yeah, Ollie Murphy, the yard went through a bit of a quiet spell. They've been back. They banged in a couple of winners last week. They seem to be firing all cylinders again. This horse has rattled up 3 on the bounce and just seems to be on a real upward trajectory at a rate of knots. Did it nicely at Huntingdon last time out. Jumps, travels, clearly up in class here, but I thought it was ticking a lot of the right boxes. The one I didn't think was going to run, is Nappers Hill, which has kind of got me worried a little bit because I think that horse has been crying out for a step up in trip. Of course, he ran really well, finishing 6th in the Betfair hurdle, looking outpaced before kind of staying on in the closing stages. So I wasn't expecting him to line up. I think they were, last time I saw, I thought they were going to try and get him into the Martin Pipe off a low weight, but they've decided to come here. It's the kind of Paul Nicholls mantra, isn't it? Try and go for perhaps the easier tasks. But yeah, I'm with Thunder Rock. I respect Stephen's view. The Harry Fry team, again, another yard who had a kind of dismal period in the kind of depths of the winter. The sun's come out, rather like myself, Joe, get a spring of a step as soon as the sun comes out. And the Harry Fry team really seem to have clicked, I think it's fair to say. So, yeah, wide open competitive race, but Thunder Rock's done very little wrong, and I think he'll travel as well as anything. It's just how much he's got up his sleeve in terms of the handicapper. But the evidence we've seen so far is there's more to come.
That's something you touch on there as well, Ed, is the form of Paul Nicholls. Something we've talked about a few weeks ago as well, just how poor it has been. But it seems like things are maybe turning around a little bit. So moving on to the Imperial Cup, and Ed, I'll start with you. Just talk to us about Nicholls' form going into this one.
Yeah, I mean, there were worries, weren't there, with the flu jabs, and he himself said, he's doing a lot of tests on all his horses, and he went through that crazy spell, didn't he, where he went, 3 weeks without a winner or something. But anyway, yeah, back to around 25% strike rate for March. He's had 9 winners so far this month. So if you're looking for that for an excuse for his horses now, I think that kind of ship sailed, personally. So, look, he's got clear chances in here. Samarive, on paper, looks the main one. Of course, a distance winner. Harry Cobden on board. Tricky race at Ascot last time out. Didn't go to plan, but clearly, as I said, got the course of distance form in the book. But I think it's just wide open. I've obviously got one of my tips of the week in this race, and we'll perhaps cover that one later.
Yeah, and Stephen, hand over to you as well. Your assessment of the Imperial Cup. How's it looking from your point of view?
Well, I think there's 22 runners, which is the maximum field size allowed. So again, look for bookmakers offering extra places. Because this isn't in the punter's favour with only 4 places. You probably want 5 or 6, really. It's a really tough race. I do think it's ground dependent. I was keen on Mr. Grey Sky. I think he could do with some rain now. Looking at outside my window at the moment, it's sunny and dry, but the forecast, as I say, for Friday is wet. So Mr. Grey Sky has won in style at Leicester and Ludlow, and I think Sandown will really suit him. He's a relentless galloper. He's going to be a really good chaser when they go back over fences next season. And Kim Bailey, as Ed just said about Harry Fry, is a yard, has come right back to form. I think he's had 3 winners in the last week or so, Kim Bailey. So they're chugging along nicely. Mr. Grey Sky has gone up a few pounds for his win at Ludlow. It's hard fought, but that track wouldn't have played to his strengths. And Sandown's a big galloping track up that hill. He'll keep pulling it out under David Bass. I'm sure he'll run a very big race. 12-1 seems a fair price.
Lovely stuff. All right, well, let's move on to the next race we're going to talk about again at Sandown. That's the 3:35 Paddy Power Novices Handicap listed chase. Venetia won this last year, but Stephen, just take us through your thoughts and how things are assessing or lining up in this race.
Yeah, there's only 6 runners. It's a slightly disappointing field, but I'm going to stick with one of Ed's yards, Colin Tizard, who's teamed up with Brendan Powell to great effect so far this season, and he's on Killer Kane. Those prices we've probably got up a little bit out of date, I think. I think there's only 6 runners left now, but Killer Kane has only had a handful of runs over fences, and he bounced right back to his very best at Kempton on good ground last time out. He's gone up £6 for that. He'll get a positive ride in this small field. He's a really good jumper. He should go really well.
And how about for you, Ed? Any strong views in going into this one? Again, a small field, right? So 6 to pick from.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I didn't want to desert my team Tizard kind of angle. However, I just thought Killer Kane's improvement really came for going up to 3 miles. He seemed to really stretch out. I'd just be a bit nervous back to 2.5. To me, he looked like an proper old-fashioned Tizard chaser, I thought. But look, he's clearly good form. Danny Kerwin would be the one I like here. Right-handed, he needs a very specific set of circumstances to come right. So I wouldn't want to see too much rain for him. But even if they get a little bit, I can't see it being much worse than good to soft by the time they go to post. And right-handed, decent ground, handicaps. He's got his quirks. I remember when he ran at Cheltenham on his chase debut back in the autumn. I mean, he was nearly jumping into the stands at every fence, and yet he still ran an absolute cracker on that occasion because he just kept going right-handed at everything. They put him back to win Canton last time out. It was a nothing race, but he did it in great style. And you clearly see, as I say, good, decent ground, right-handed tracks. He jumps for fun, and I think there's more to come from him. So he's one for the long-term notebooks. I see Paul Nichols saying he'll probably run him here, put him away for the Badger Ales at Wincanton in November. So, you know, Mr. Nichols already plotting up next season's big prizes. But yeah, Danny Kerwin for me, Harry Compton on board. I think could be a good day for Paul Nichols.
Now, the final race we want to get to is actually at Gowran Park. So, Vincent, I'll bring you in here. We were going to talk a bit more in depth about the Shamrock Handicap, but you think there are a few more interesting races, perhaps? So, for you, just take it away and the Irish angle for this weekend.
Yeah, it's a very busy weekend. As I said, there's 4 meetings on. It's going to be very testing ground with huge rain here over the last 24 hours. There's more rain due coming into the weekend. So the likes of Gowran Park on Saturday, the ground is now heavy. They had 40 millimetres of rain yesterday, and they've another 20 millimetres due over Friday and Saturday. So will it be on is the question, I suppose, but it's the same for all of these meetings. It's going to be very testing ground. Navan on Saturday has a particularly good race, an interesting race. There's an angle here with Cheltenham as well. It's a grade 2 novice, or a grade 2 chase. It's not a novice chase, but there's a novice tops the weights here, a horse called Master McShee, which won a grade 1 at Christmas in Limerick on heavy ground. So the heavy ground shouldn't be a problem, but it's got a grade 1 penalty for that. So it's having to give away weight to horses like Notebook and Castlegrace Paddy and Silas Emery, who are decent horses in their own right. So that might be a bit of an ask, but it's interesting here that Master McShee finished 9 lengths second to Gallopin Des Champs the last day. So that's a horse everyone will be watching next week in Cheltenham. So it'll be interesting to see how Master McShee gets on. There's another angle here with Master McShee as well. The day he won in Limerick at Christmas, he won a short head from Farouk Deline, who'll possibly run in Cheltenham. And 28 lengths back in third was Gabby Nacco of Gavin Cromwell's, which was supplemented yesterday for £8,000 to run in the Arkle Chase, having already had entries in the other 2 novice chases at the festival. So Gabby Nacco was 28 lengths behind this. You'd expect this horse to run some sort of a race, Master McShee even giving weight away. And the other meeting on Saturday is at Gowran Park. There's a couple of interesting races, but the main one for me is probably the bumper here. Henry de Bromhead has won this. It's a point-to-point bumper for horses that finished in the first 4 in a point-to-point previously. And Henry de Bromhead won this last year with Journey With Me, which is one of the main fancies in Cheltenham this year. He also won it the previous year with Bob Ollinger. And then before that, he won it the previous year as well with Manila Melody. So he's won it the last 3 years. He's gone for 4 in a row here. He runs a horse called Arctic Brezel, which they bought for big money after it ran in 2 point-to-points. Hasn't actually won a point-to-point yet. But it's the same owner as a Clat de Rear. So good ownership, paid a lot of money for it. They'd be expecting big things. Stable going for the 4th win in that in 4 years in a row if it comes out. The other things to note over the weekend in Naas, we haven't got the runners yet for Naas, but there's a grade 3 novice hurdle where there's a mare called Gypsy Island of Peter Fahey's is entered, which is very interesting. This horse won 4 bumpers, finished a length second to Put the Kettle On in a maiden hurdle back in 2018. And we haven't seen it since May of last year when it won a maiden hurdle. It was just as the season started last season, won a maiden hurdle. So be interesting to see Gypsy Island if she runs. She's a JP McManus owned mare. And then there's also a Grade 3 novice chase, which that Master McShee was due to run in, but it was going to have a big Grade 1 penalty for the win at Limerick at Christmas, so it doesn't run. Obviously, it goes Saturday instead. They think it's an easier option, which I'm not sure it is, because they're running against seasoned horses. And then one in that is Jeremy's Flame, which was very impressive in Thurles the last day. This mare won really well in Thurles. Be interesting to see if that turns up. It's a Gavin Cromwell one again. Gavin Cromwell, he's turned a corner. He was having a poor season. As I was only saying last week, he'd had one winner in 79 runners. Then he goes out and has a treble last Saturday, another winner last Sunday. So he's hitting form coming into Cheltenham. So be interesting to see how his horse runs. If she runs on Sunday, Jeremy's Flame, another pointer towards his stable form going into Cheltenham. And then lastly, we've got Leinster Grand National. It's a £100,000 race at Naas on Sunday. It's an extended 3-mile race. It's only 3 miles, 126 yards. So it's a bit much calling it a Grand National, I suppose, in the true sense, comparing to the English one, which is 4 miles 2. The Irish one is 3 miles 5, but the Leinster one is only 3 miles and 126 yards. Having said that, it'll take a bit of getting this weekend in the testing conditions. And we haven't got runners for it at the moment, but the top weights are Franco de Port and Ronald Pump. Ronald Pump is interesting. Horse who's been chasing home honeysuckle the last couple of seasons over hurdles. Hasn't run over fences for quite a while. It had 3 runs as a novice a few years back. So it's interesting to see how that goes in its first handicap does run. And one horse that's entered for this, which I'd imagine a lot of people are hoping that it won't run, is a horse called Debt Duty, which is currently the favourite for the Ultima next Tuesday in Cheltenham. So if that runs, that's anyone who's backed that into 7-1 at this stage, 6-1 I think in places for the Ultima. You'd presume Debt Duty won't run, but it's a strange one that they even bothered entering it for this race.
Yeah, that is a bit of a weird one, right? Obviously, with Cheltenham, surely the prize money is more attractive, so why would they even bother entering? Yeah, really interesting, Vincent. Of course, stay tuned to irishracing.com for all the fallout of this weekend's racing and how it could impact the week that is Cheltenham Festival coming up. But now we're going to get to our tips of the week, and there is one guy who's in cracking form. So, Stephen, I'll start with you because you've already ticked over the 3-figure mark in units profit here on Jump To It. So hopefully people have been backing your performances. But to take us through your current run of form and how was it going? And what have you got for us this week?
Well, been going okay. We need to get a bit of ammunition in store for the flat season, which is not my specialised subject. But this weekend, 2 strong bets for me at Sandown. In the 150, Dubrovnik Harry, we've already touched on Harry Fry going really well. I'll be really disappointed if he can't win off a mark of 125 now going handicapping. He's a free-going sort. He'll definitely improve for a proper gallop for the first time. He's one of those horses who's been tanking around in novice hurdles. He's got a lot of ability and he's held in high regard. And I think he'll also appreciate better ground, which we should get at Sandown this weekend. And in the 225, the big race of the weekend, Mr. Grey Sky, who's around 10 or 12-1. I think I've put him up win only, but if you've got a bookmaker account with extra places, go for that. He's a tough, reliable galloper. He won't be stopping up the hill. He might find 1 or 2 better handicap maybe, but I'm sure he'll be in the first 4 or 5 with a clean round of jumping. So, he should go really well as well.
Lovely stuff. Well, best of luck to you, Stephen. And Ed, you've got some conflicting views with those races, but you've got some long shots for us back in your traditional style.
Yeah, I've thought a few value bets here. I've been shoveling away my profit. I managed to get up in the bank over the dark depths of the winter. So time to get it all back now in the spring. I thought in the 150, I'll take it Stephen on with Thunder Rock, who arrives on the 4-timer for the Ollie Murphy, Adrian Heskin combination. Strong traveller, yes, up in class and up in the weight, but did it nicely last time out and totally deserves to take his place in this lineup. I thought Up for Pro was a huge price. In the Imperial Cup. I actually spoke to Jamie Snowden about this horse, and he said he's one of the kind of quirks of the pedigree and the fact that he's bred to get about 9 miles. So they keep stepping him up in trip. But every time he goes up to 2.5, he falls in a hole and leaves connections scratching their head. So he's starting to think perhaps he's just been running this horse over the wrong trip for a lot of his career. Back to a stiff 2 miles. He's a front runner. He'll get on with things. I think he could kind of make them all catch him a bit, if you see what I'm saying. He could be one for the exchange angle as well here, Joe, worth pointing out, because I can imagine he could build up a bit of a healthy lead. He could trade a lot shorter in running, perhaps before we get swamped by some closers. But I think he's good value. And a horse we mentioned later on, Danny Kerwin, decent ground, right-handed tracks. Paul Nicholls' team, after their flu jab woes and all that jazz, they're backfiring in the winners right, left and centre. So Danny Kerwin, for me, I think he'll go really well in that novice handicap chase.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you, Ed. And over to you, Vincent, as well, with your tip of the weekend.
Yeah, just the one. My main tip would be back whatever Stephen tips, because that seems to just win every single week. But the one I'm going for is a horse in the Tetratima Cup in Gowran Park on Saturday. This is a hunter chase, and there's a horse in it, Sam Curling's, called Alone Among Millions. Very interesting horse, this, for lots of reasons. One of them is, back in the end of January 2021, which is a little over a year ago, it was well back to beat Billaway in a hunter chase in Naas, and made a bad mistake and finished lame that day. It was a bit unlucky. It was going well at the time. Jamie Codd had ridden it. It won this particular Tetratima race back in 2020, and it was off the track since the Billaway race until recently, when it came out and won a point-to-point. Sam Curling is very good with these hunter chasers. I'd expect this to win. It may not be a big price, but you'd be very disappointed if it didn't win.
Brilliant. Well, best of luck to you and also Ed and Stephen once again. That wraps it up for today's edition of Jump To It. Now, I want to just outline what we've got planned for the Cheltenham Festival, because there is a lot coming your way here on irishracing.com. We're going to have day-by-day previews. So the day before the racing, we're going to have that. We're also going to have breakfast briefings with Ed. So he's going to be on course, on location, to give you the weather updates, or our resident meteorologist, as well as interviewing with Danny Mullins once again. He'll be back with us next week to talk you through his rides and how he's shaping up ahead of the festival. So plenty to get stuck into. Do subscribe and also follow us on Twitter as well, where you get plenty more from irishracing.com. That's it for now. And of course, if you do place a bet, please do gamble responsibly.